Hello everyone, I'm Loki, and welcome back to the Lair. Today we're talking about how to incorporate new players into your existing campaigns. This subject was brought up by one of my subscribers on Discord by the name of Caliburn. Thank you very much, Caliburn, for the suggestion. Players joining and leaving our games is for the most part a normal part of the tabletop experience, but especially now with the explosion of online play, it's really never been easier to ghost your dungeon master and leave the game. Unfortunately, this creates a void at many tables, and especially for smaller groups, it's very important that this void gets filled. Introducing a new player to an existing campaign is tough, and I'm sure some of you guys have had it where new players have joined only to leave a few weeks later. It's happened to me in the past. The main thing I've learned is that you need to make your players feel wanted and useful at the table. That doesn't necessarily mean you need to make them a spotlight player for 4 to 6 weeks or anything like that. It just means that they need to be involved. If you introduce them as if nothing has happened and have them tag along with the party on their existing mission without any thought, it's far more likely that they're going to flake and leave than they would have if they had actually felt welcomed and involved in whatever story you've been trying to tell. It's really not a bad thing to invest some time into new players and making them feel welcome. Integrating your new player with your existing players is really important to make them feel comfortable at your table. It's a big difference between having a new player join as an extra body to help the party with a quest, or having a player provide information, story progression, or something more substantial to the table. An example could be that a new player was found shackled up in a dungeon. Having them join with little information apart from they were captured is very simple and all, but what if they were here with a group of buddies and the new player who's joining doesn't know if their buddies are alive or not? So that immediately is kind of giving them a hook. It's giving them their own plot, their own kind of side quest to try and find their friends. And maybe the other players want to try and find them too, because these guys could probably help the party as hirelings for the remainder of the dungeon and kind of provide some skills that they might not have. Maybe the party doesn't have a rogue, and you could just say, improvise and say, one of the other people who was with this guy, one of these group of buddies guys, is a lockpicker. So if you guys can find him, then you'll have somebody to pick the locks. You just got to try and find him. You got to be quick, and that adds urgency, right? So this is what I mean. There's a lot more you can kind of do with it. One of the bigger issues I see with incorporating new players is when your party has a click. I remember several years ago I wanted to join one of my friend's games. He was actually one of my players, but he decided to make his own game, and his players were pretty rude to me on Discord when I first joined, and they seemed a little bit resistant of any new players joining, even though they didn't know me. Some groups just don't like the idea of having a new player join and kind of upset their apple cart, right? And you're going to have to deal with players like that as a dungeon master if you want to be able to incorporate or include new people. And I'm sure there's a lot of you guys who've never had to deal with players like that, but I bet you there are some of you out there watching this video who have dealt with people like that, and it's very tiring, and it's just I'm trying to avoid it now moving forward. I'm trying to avoid people like that. But it is pretty important to chat with your players and just make sure that they're on board with you bringing in a new player or so, and maybe even asking them outright if they could actually try and include a new player when they join and get them involved. It's not inappropriate to ask a player to do that. I think the best players are the ones who actually bring other players into the spotlight. It shows teamwork and cooperation and just general kindness and etiquette. So remember that if you're a player in any games. I think the next and biggest thing in my eyes is backstory. And I have a video that I put up recently on backstory, so check it out if you want my full kind of rundown of what I think about using backstories in your campaigns. But I think it's important that whatever story your new player is trying to tell or has as a representation of their past, it ties into the stories of the players that you currently already have, at least their characters, right? The characters that are already being a part of this story. So it makes sense, right? Or maybe they can have their own story, but somehow you can like try and weave it in. And a lot of I feel like the reason why I'm saying this is because a lot of people value verisimilitude. I know my players do, and they enjoy the idea of things actually making sense. It doesn't necessarily matter if the circumstances of them joining are coincidental. There's a lot of coincidences in fantasy story writing and books and stuff like that. The problem is sometimes players want to do their own thing in D&D. They want to make a really absurd, ridiculous character that doesn't really make any fucking sense. And then they kind of expect you to tie everything in. And I actually love players that want to work with me and collaborate so we can actually tell a compelling story together. I think that, especially during a campaign, it's so important that not just new players, but new characters of your existing players, when a player dies or a character dies or something, is introduced appropriately and effectively. Just because your player thinks that their backstory is really, really cool doesn't mean that you do. Doesn't mean that you're going to want to use it. Collaborating with your players and like incorporating the story that they want to tell into your world, it's just going to get you both really excited to actually have that. And if somebody's backstory is that like they're a commoner and they want to become a knight, I mean that's not necessarily their backstory, but that's kind of like their hero's story, right? Their hero cycle. That's pretty sweet, right? That's something that you can work towards. That's something that you can create little plot hooks and story beats for. But yeah, if you're not running a narrative game, that's fine. You might not need to do anything like that. But I myself love a fat sandbox, but my players really do like having a bit of narrative drive. So I do like to add narrative whenever I can. But yeah, just know that players do enjoy feeling value and wanted at the table and having their moment, whether you're playing old school or new school, right? But anyway, thanks for watching today's video. I do apologize if my voice has been a bit rough today. I've had COVID, so I'm just on the road to recovery. Fortunately, I have not coughed once during this recording, so that's good. But if you have any more thoughts on this topic, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Join our Discord if you wish. There's a link to the Discord in the description of this video. And as always, I'll see you guys next time on Loki's Lair. Until then, goodbye.